Well, ladies and gentlemen, what an interesting episode we have for you guys today. We have a special guest, Apirl Hutchinson, a Canadian powerlifter who, let's be honest, has become one of the most prominent voices in speaking out on this issue that women's powerlifting is facing, with men coming in, identifying as women, taking places or awards away, cheating, and breaking records. Like Anne Andres, you've been very vocal on him. You've raised great awareness on this whole thing. You've been on shows like Piers Morgan Uncensored, interviewed by Tucker Carlson, which is amazing. So I'm very grateful to see you. But with all this amazing work you've done, there have been a lot of consequences you are now facing, which we'll discuss. The CPU, the Canadian Powerlifting Union, has given you a 2-year ban. And a new situation has come about where when I first read it, again, I couldn't believe what was happening. It's a line that doesn't need to be crossed and is very personal. But again, thank you for coming on. And I guess we could start this off by asking, where did this all begin for you? What was that defining moment where you sat back and you saw that I can't go on, I have to say something about what is going on within women's powerlifting?
Yeah, so you've done your homework. That was a really good
I
introduction.
I have, yeah.
So it started back in January of this year. It's when I basically wrote my federation notifying them that there was a male-born athlete
Hmm.
in my category, but lifting in the women's category. Now, how I knew this is because I used to be friends and talk on Facebook with this individual during COVID,
Oh,
and I had no idea because they never came out and told me, and I didn't want to make assumptions, right? But then he did tell me that he was a biological male, that he transitioned after the age 20. And I had no idea about that. And then I said, well, how far do you expect to go with this? Do you want to go to worlds or nationals? And he's like, oh, yeah, I want to go to the worlds. And that's when I was like, that's completely wrong. Like, you should not be lifting. You should not be competing against women. I said, that's taking a place away from a woman. We've worked so hard for those spots and trained so hard. And he blocked and deleted me after I said that. So I haven't had, and that was back in 2020. I have had
wow.
zero contact with Anne. So, and then I wrote my federation, and they basically ignored my emails. I think a news article came out today, and my lawyer kind of was telling people what was happening. And like, that's one of my things why I'm going against my federation, is because they literally ignored my letters, but they ignored all the other women's letters saying, like, it's unfair, it's unsafe. We don't want to compete against men. And they did nothing. So,
So it's not only you that's been speaking out on this issue, there are multiple women
yeah.
as well. Wow.
Well, I'm basically the one in the forefront. I guess people like to call me the sacrificial lamb, like the lamb to take all the heat. Or I'm a tough cookie. I'm really, I stand for truth, right? So, like, if I'm speaking the truth and I know I'm doing something right, I can stand tall and I'll fight anyone on the topic. I won't back down on this.
Mm.
Not just for me. Like, if I wasn't powerlifting, I would still be speaking out. I have two nieces. This is the future of girls' sport that we're talking about. We will be erased if we do not do something.
I completely agree. And that's one of the issues I have. I look forward to when I potentially become a father. And I think if my girl wants to compete in a sport, she could potentially come against a male, which is why I think it's so important to stand up for what is going on now. But as we mentioned, the CPU have clearly not liked the fact you are standing up for common sense, reality, and truth. And they have sent you a 2-year ban. I think it's disgraceful. I really do. What was their reasonings for giving you this suspension? How does that come about? And what were your initial reactions to seeing that, well, I've now been suspended?
That was my reaction. Whoa. Like, I'm still like I'm not shocked as much right now, but when I opened the email and I got that 2 year, I was like, well, that's like the same sentence you'd give someone that got caught doping. I'm like, so I knew automatically that they did that on purpose to use me as an example. Like, so if you speak up about this, you will be punished, or we will make an example out of you. We're basically as a scare tactic to silence all the other people. So, I mean, it was actually, to be honest, it was a blessing,
Hmm.
that they actually did this, because it would never have gotten such global attention. I don't mind putting myself out there to be made an example of. I've lost my sport, but I'm still training. But yes, I can't go to Worlds now, but I'd rather do this right now than concentrate on that. But no, it was quite shocking. There is a letter that I released on my Twitter. It shows the whole case. I've been full transparency the whole way through. It's my legal letter basically debunking everything that the Federation has said. So they said that I called the lifter and a biological male on Piers Morgan, which I did, and I will stand by that.
He is.
Yes, which is fact. It's just the truth. So I will stand by that. That was the main complaint, basically. And that's the one thing that's gotten me into all this hot water, I guess you would say, is the fact that I'm speaking the truth. People don't like it. They're saying that I'm misgendering. It goes against the Ontario Rights Commission. It creates genocide. It's like, it kills me when they always bring that word out. It's basically me telling people that they don't exist. And I was like, that's not what this is about. I never said people like trans athletes can't lift. It just has to be fair, and it has to be in a separate category. You can't just put women's rights and athletes on the back burner, right? So I'm a very loving, compassionate person. I want everyone to compete in sports for sure, but it just has to be on a fair playing field.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And I think many people watching right now will already be hearing what you're saying, thinking, wow, being as this has been going on for quite some time, do you think there will be a chance with all the support you're getting from everybody? Do you think there will be a chance that this could be reversed at all in the future?
You mean the whole like topic of the sports?
Just as the suspension that you're
so I'm being hopeful about it. I can't get into too much detail about my legal proceedings, because if we don't, even if it does get rescinded, I do believe we will be taking legal action anyways. Okay. So I can't touch any more about that, but I'm hoping it gets rescinded. The right thing to do would be to take it back. But who knows? I don't know who this third company party is that's making the decisions. Everything's been so fishy and suspicious. Like even the board members from the CPU were biased. They didn't follow the natural law proceedings. It was based on biased decisions. I wasn't even told who the committee members were making these decisions, or the jury. Wow. There was no facts given to me. Everything that I sent in was ignored. I just felt personally attacked the whole year and targeted. Like it was, they didn't answer any of my complaints about Anne making fun of lifters, but they were so easy and ready to, discipline me twice and suspend me. So there you go, right?
It certainly feels like they've put a man's feelings who was cheating above the integrity and the fairness of women's powerlifting. With all the support you've got, what is it like in person? Because social media is one thing, but in person, I imagine you've got a good support circle with you, friends, family, encouraging you to go on with this. Because I think that's very important. What's that like?
Well, I will admit, ask my boyfriend this, like he's with me probably 90% of the time. It has been draining. It has really affected my mental health this last year, my sleep, my training, my numbers have gone down. It's affected everything in my life. It's been like a tornado, and it's honestly, I'm so glad it hasn't affected my sobriety, because, that's obviously the one thing I was concerned about through all this. I've never once had a craving to drink, so I'll thank you, God, for that one. It's just been good. So no, but the support is what gets me through. I wear my Keep Female on my t-shirt here. I wear that
I need to
everywhere
buy
I go.
Really?
Yeah. And I get high fives. I get people honking their horn. People love it. They're like, where can I get one? I believe in you, what you're doing. Even people like, look at Reddit. People on Reddit are supporting me. And that's like a huge like leftist group, right? So
that's amazing.
The only percent that's not, and I hate to say it, are usually, obviously trans rights activists, right? There's that small minority who, they've just been making my life just a wonderful, wonderful hell lately. So
a small minority that seems to have a large say in what goes on within our society. When it reaches, and we'll touch on the sobriety thing in just a bit, because there has been some news surrounding another consequence. But say when the 2 year suspension is up, do you see yourself going back and lifting in the same events, or will that be something you step away from and just raise awareness on men going in and competing like Anne?
But that I've actually had to take a lot of time to think about that one. I do want to. I'm still powerlifting now.
Hmm.
Would I compete again with my union, like the Canadian Powerlifting Union? I would on certain circumstances if the whole board resigned,
Oh,
if they offered me a public apology,
they should.
and if they banned men from lifting with women and created a separate category. And I'm talking even at a local level. I'm not talking even international. There needs to be a separate category created for trans athletes. If they don't do that, then I will not be going back. But there's other federations I can lift in. They're not as competitive, but I could still go to worlds in their federation and nationals and stuff. So, but I think I found my calling through this. I think I actually stumbled into powerlifting to kind of get where I am now, and that's an advocate for fairness in women's sports. Much like Riley Gaines, right? She's not competing, but look at her; she's traveling the world and speaking out about this, and that's what I would like to do, especially in Canada, where it's like super, super liberal woke. Like they need to be woken up by this, woken up.
That was good.
Yeah.
I actually think, you from what I see, you are pretty much the Canadian Riley Gaines, because I don't see any Canadian women really stepping forward as you have and speaking out on this issue. I don't know if they're worried, they're scared, they could face consequences, or they just agree with what's going on. But do you see it ever changing in the near future, or do you think it will just continue to go on and on and on until maybe Justin Trudeau maybe gets removed or something? Who knows? Because it seems to be really tough out there right now.
Well, there will be parties in the streets when JT is gone. It's going to be epic, but that'll be next year in October. So, no, I do think a change of government is definitely number one. But honestly, it has to change. And everyone says this to me, just keep sticking it out, keep fighting, because the tides are turning, and they have, like, even in this last 8 months, so many federations have changed their policies to protect women than when I first started. So you take powerlifting, where men have a 70% advantage over women alone in just strength. I can't believe they haven't changed it already, to be honest. But I mean, if federations don't, it's literally just going to be men's sports, because they're going to dominate everything.
Yeah.
And that's what the key is. It's not about winning. It's about dominating, because if, for example, the trans identifying lifter in my category just wanted to lift and have fun, then they would be happy just to lift at a local level. But this person wants to go and win worlds. They want to go all the way. They want to dominate. So, yeah, but no, I definitely think there's going to be changes, like huge changes.
But I don't know if you saw the Swimming World Cup created a category for just trans, and nobody turned up or entered. So to me, that says a lot, that they don't actually want to compete just for the sport's sake itself. They want to compete against women and beat them.
Yeah.
Which is a terrible thing.
Yeah. So if it's dominance or misogyny, which one, but that's what it's about for sure.
Exactly. Your sobriety. This is something that, even now just speaking about it, it's just shows the power of cancel culture. So there is a museum in Ontario, London, I believe it is, that has now removed you from an exhibit celebrating your sobriety because you have done what many other people wouldn't and stood up for the truth. Again, how has that come about, and why? What was their reasoning for doing so?
So in a nutshell, so I got asked last year in October from the curator of the museum. They saw my story of sobriety in the newspaper, and they asked me to be part of an exhibit called Resilience London. So they picked 75 Londoners that had a story about strength and resilience. So I accepted. I actually helped them with the show, and I actually found them other contributors. Back in November, there was an anonymous complaint put into the museum that I was transphobic. So the curator came to me and said, well, we got this, this comment, and they said you're transphobic. And I was like, well, what do you mean transphobic? And she's like, do you belong to a group called Save Women's Sports? And I was like, yeah, that's the sports, like Olympic athletes are on this board, and we are trying to keep female sports female. And she was like, oh, okay, well, we just don't want any more complaints. We're just watching out for you. So going forward, we won't police people. We won't police. I'm like, okay, cool, thanks. So the year goes on, I get interviewed by Tucker Carlson, Piers Morgan. I'm all over the news.
Amazing.
And all of a sudden, opening night at the exhibit happens, which happens to have 3 transgenders. There's transgenders openly in the exhibit itself. Great. So you think someone that was transphobic, I wouldn't be going into an exhibit, right? So I loved it. It was great. My coworkers, everyone was there, my family to support me. And then 2 weeks after that, I got an email saying, oh, we're taking down your exhibit because it doesn't match with they basically said that my hate speech is harmful to the LGBT plus community, and that me misgendering someone, because they saw my suspension with my federation, misgendering takes away their existence. And I was like, so you're just suspending me because you're getting rid of my exhibit because you saw that because I got global attention about my suspension.
Yeah.
So basically they were afraid of their appearance, right?
Okay.
They were more worried about themselves. They didn't do their homework. They probably made a very rash decision. They're probably regretting it now, to be honest, because they've had a lot of backlash.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's crazy. Do you think that will change? Do you think you'll be able to get back in the exhibit, or is that done as well?
No, never. That's disgusting behavior. I will not give one penny to that museum ever again. And I hope other people do not as well, because that's, out of all of this, even the Saving Women's Sports thing, that was the most damaging, because that damaged my character. I literally was vulnerable and told people about my sexual trauma, my addiction recovery, my attempt, and how I overcame that and became a Team Canada powerlifter. And they just dismissed it, took it down like it was nothing, to appease probably an anonymous complaint, or to appease their reputation because of my suspension. Like, it's just, that's horrible. You don't treat people like that. Like,
No.
that's
why I said, whilst banning you from powerlifting is one thing, this one for me is crossing the line in a very personal way and kind of trying to erase you from whatever they've got to do with you.
Yeah.
And it just shows that they're trying to silence you and, trying to step away from whatever controversy you've caused, which I don't think it is controversy, but to keep on fighting and fighting when you're getting knocked down constantly is one of the bravest things and courageous things anybody can do. And we talk about you being called transphobic, which you're not, you're just stating the truth. What has the hate been like online at all with all of this since you started speaking out online, in person? Has it been really hard to deal with, or is it just something you just brush off and think, I know what I'm doing, they don't really know what they're on about? What's that been like?
Yeah, it's a complete mental thing for sure. I myself have to take breaks from being online. Like, you know what I mean? Even my boyfriend's like, because it's affecting my relationships, right? Even with my boyfriend. And because I'm online, I'm looking at what's posted. I actually, since I've started this whole thing, I haven't had a lot of hate messages. I was actually quite surprised, because not even like spam, nothing, like no hate messages, but maybe like 1 or 2, but you could tell they were just trolls, you know what I mean? I've actually like potentially gained sponsors, which is great. I haven't lost any sponsors, but it's just like there's a couple of people in my city, they're just trans rights activists that I actually had to go to the police yesterday and put a report in, because I'm big on outing bullies. Like, so if I ever get bad messages, I literally out them, because I have a huge following, and I'm like, hey, this person, I put out their full name. And I just let them know what they've been doing. So that usually shuts them down too. But I mean, you can't really do much about cyberbullying.
No.
I'm not going to waste my money on a slander lawsuit when I have bigger fish to fry. Like I had like my federation and the museum, right? Like the
Mm,
museum needs to be held accountable for sure. Like this one, I'm not going to let slide. So,
mm. Well,
but no, it's
I'm
sorry.
happy
Go
for
ahead.
I'm happy for it. Like whenever I see any news to do with you and taking steps to potentially have everything slowly go back to normal, I think it's great. And what they're putting you through it's not justified. We all know that. And whilst I can sit here and talk about the stuff I talk about, what you're doing is the real work. And I guess what does the future for you look like in these coming months? Do you have anything planned upcoming to go on different TV shows, events, anything like that?
Right now, I'm literally just kind of like I'm only trying to do like I agreed to do your YouTube, but I'm just really trying to stick to mainstream
Hmm.
media.
Okay.
I don't want to get lost into doing like little podcasts here and there, just because it's not that important. And plus, I'm really just trying to focus on the legal aspects of it all with my lawyer.
Hmm.
We have put the appeal in, so that got approved because you have to get approved to do an appeal. So that actually just went through and got approved. I'm working with Rebel News. They're like a great news place here in probably the best in
Yeah.
Canada. And they've actually created a crowd fund for me to take care of all my legal fees
Wow.
and also a petition. So I'm so grateful for them. Like they have been such a huge help since this has all started. So yeah, I'm just going to be working with them. And basically, I'll still talk to media and stuff. But I'm just really trying to like lay low a little bit
Oh,
because
okay.
of the whole legal process. But
Well,
otherwise, I'm just going to keep speaking out, right? Like if there's functions that I can go to in the future, like either a political function or go to like a university or talk to some sports teams, kind of like what Riley Gaines does, I would love to do that.
I think that would be great. But as you said, I don't want to keep you for too long. You're a busy woman. So thank
Oh,
you
it's
again
a pleasure.
for coming on the channel as you want to stick to mainstream media. I really do appreciate it. Is there any final words to the people watching you want to say about your story?
Well, I'm staying positive. That's all I can do. And I mean, the amount of support that I've received has been just overwhelming and it touches my heart every day. And I'm a very compassionate, like very empathetic person.
Hmm.
So sometimes I cry, right? Like I cry not because I'm upset, but I cry because I'm overwhelmed with the amount of people that have like just sent me a personal message or donated to my crowd fund or people from all around the world are messaging me and it means a lot to me. So you guys out there that are supporting me, it keeps me going. It's what makes me smile every day. This makes it worth the fight, right? And yeah, and if I have any kind of suggestions or advice would be to people and athletes, please speak up because guess what? This is how things change. You have to use your voice. Do not be afraid. So these organizations will make an example out of me, which they have, but I will keep fighting. And if you stick to the truth, you will win and common sense will prevail. And the tides are turning and all those awesome expressions because it really is changing and you have to speak up. You can't be part of like don't be a wallflower and sit back. You got to speak up. Yeah.
Yeah, I really do believe the tide is changing. I'll leave the petition links, donation links in the description if anybody wants to go ahead and donate, sign the petition, all of it
Oh, and my
really helps.
t-shirts too.
Oh, and I'll leave a link to your t-shirts as
Yes.
well. I'll have to get one. I think they're great. But once again,
Yeah. Give me
thank you
your
so much.
address. I'll send you one.
Really, thank you. But again, thank you so much for coming on. I really do appreciate it. Have a good day, April.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.